Live streaming is done.
And good morning. Welcome to Free Spirit Prepping and News with my special guest in the studio today. I've got Hunter, aka um, PDC streamer.
Howdy, for a little bit, anyways.
And I'm liable to have other guests pop in. I give me a moment while I share out links, folks. This is morning rants and rumors, so pretty much gonna run the gamut. I will be taking guests here in a little bit once I can get things shared out and posted. It's
I'm saying hey everybody because I think I got to bounce here pretty soon.
yeah, I know.
You guys take care.
But it's
I got see what's going on.
alrighty, Hunter. And Drew, if you want to hop in, I will drop it in the link in Twitter. Just trying to get things shared out to the various platforms here. Because I didn't get the last one shared out to where all I needed to, so I'm gonna have to wait until after. There's been so much going on. So much going on. Good God, my mic is hot today. Not sure quite why, but that's interesting. No data. All right. Yeah, might have just been something else altogether. But let me make sure his mic is off. But if somebody pops in, I'll have to grab my headsets and all right, 1 second, Drew. Let me grab my headset. Oh, that's interesting. 1 second, Drew. I gotta grab my headset splitter because Goofball's here yet. Oh. And good morning, Drew. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing all right.
Oh my God, I gotta turn the volume down. About blew me out of my house. This is definitely morning rants.
It's definitely morning for me.
Hey, real quick, if you had a tech glitch, my phone decided to auto connect to your Wi-Fi, so I turned it off to data.
Yeah, I was just gonna say because I
I
was.
heard you have a tech glitch.
Yeah,
My phone said, "Hey, let's connect to Wi-Fi." Like, no,
No.
I turned it off, so I did not do that. Sorry about that, everyone.
All right. Yeah, streamer's he's chattering away on his phone while waiting for his coffee to brew.
No, I'm done with coffee.
Oh.
What I'm doing is I gotta get ready to go to my
Oh,
friend's
okay.
house to help with the mattress.
Oh, okay. Well, I am live now.
That's fine. But you take care of Free Spirit. I gotta call the cab.
Alrighty.
Sorry about the tech glitch. Let Drew know about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure he heard because we are live.
Oh, let's just let him know that was my fault.
This is, I couldn't very well use morning rants and rambles of chaos, but well, this because that actually is your tagline. But it is chaos. It is kind of a morning rant, and it's been a while since I've actually went live on my channel and really spoke up about things that kind of been in my crawl for a while. So, I was sitting back thinking last night, you know, and trying to figure out. 1 second, I need to unplug his mic because his mic is just raising hell with my system. There, his mic is no longer a problem. um, it's it's a real serious problem. We look back over the last 5 days, and we look at the utter shitstorm. You're unplugged already.
I have time.
Yeah. Well, it's you'll have to lean closer to get onto my mic then, and you won't be able to hear.
And Drew's on?
Yes.
Cool. Hi, Drew.
He
Hey.
he says, "Hey,
Oh, he's live.
Yeah.
Ah.
yeah,
Later, you'll have to tell him what we talked about last
yeah,
night.
yeah, we're not gonna go there again. That situation's dealt with. When we look at the utter shitstorm of the last 5 days, and I passed out before I seen anything post after it's not a record 15th vote, because we've actually had, what was it, 44 votes before somebody was actually selected as a speaker.
Yeah.
I said something last night on Twitter, and my stance has not changed. That's treasonous. If you cannot have a plan and have a primary, a secondary, and a tertiary name already in mind, and you cannot get an objective done in one damn day, in 1 to 3 votes, then you have no business being in our nation's capital. All that's managed to do is not just further the divide within our country, but it's made a further divide and a further mockery of the republic for which we stand. And to some end, I have a lot of friends. You have a lot of friends. You have a very distinct connection to this nation's history and historic lineage. And at one time in this great nation's history, it was of the 3% that stood and took an oath. And that included the people who actually took the oath to actually be willing to make a difference in Congress and serve in a much higher role. So when I made that post last night on Twitter, treasonous behavior, which we've seen in the last week, is just that. It's treasonous. It's betrayal at its highest level. We thought that the January 6th stuff was bad, and the actions of a few made the actions of many look even worse. Now I look back at the past week and I question whose behavior was more treasonous, whose behavior and actions was an even bigger betrayal of those who have went before. Now, those who follow my channel, follow your channel, know that we're both very big in history and text and tradition. And we've touched on this a lot. And I'm pretty sure I'm probably going to get a warning about it. What's your in a short synopsis of that, because you haven't been over here in nearly a year.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, I've already got everything shared. I got everything shared to the mines here. The only place I didn't share it to is Facebook.
Yeah, it's the one of the few places that I actually.
Well, Facebook ain't allowing me to share to my pages no more.
Yeah, they've been a problem for me too.
So.
But this is becoming a serious problem when and I forget, somebody else said it. I think it wasn't yesterday. It was a day or so ago, maybe 2 days ago. They compared this debauchery to the J6, and I forget who it was, but what was more treasonous? What we've just the millions and millions of dollars that was spent trying to get that vote through versus the J6. What behavior was more treasonous, Drew?
Well, there's nothing. There was nothing treasonous about J6 other than what's recently came out, that how many of those congressmen and women actually knew what was going to take place. How Pelosi refused to, at the sergeant at arms request repeatedly. So the treason part happened within the House. But J6. First off, let's get something straight, and it got straightened out last night because I actually watched after the ceremonial part of the swearing in of the speaker. I watched it. Believe it or not, he gave a great speech. He said some good things. Does not mean I'm support McCarthy. He's a rhino. He's corrupt. I mean, basically, he was bribing all the Republicans for their votes, and they were selling their souls to him. With that said, though, he made a good point, and this is something I was big on. There's a rotunda. They call it a rotunda in the House for a reason. All the way ringing the House floor is a balcony that has nothing but seats. That is for the American public. Our Congress, our House and Senate, it belongs to the people. We have every right to be in there. We're supposed to be in there. We're supposed to be able to go in there and watch them. See what they're doing. There was never supposed to be no closed doors meetings, behind closed doors, none of that. It's all was supposed to be done in front of the public. As of about 1 o'clock last night, it is now reopened to the public. because it is our house. It is our Senate. We have every right to sit in there. It has been closed since the January 6th debacle that they staged. There was no. They basically declared war on the American people when they put up fences around our government. It's not theirs, it's ours. We elect them. They're our representatives. That's our building. When they barred us from Congress, the ability to go in there, they committed it treason and sedition. They committed an act of war against the American people. I don't, still don't care that, McCarthy's like, oh, it's now open. You people, we the people can come in here, sit and watch. In fact, he even said, I encourage you to come and sit and watch, which makes me really question that. But the J6 debacle, most of that was staged. We already got AOC has already been caught with her little lie. But we still got people that are being detained without due process, without a possibility to bail. They're being treated because they are labeled as domestic terrorists. They might not be publicly saying that, but every politician that talks about January 6th as it being an attack on Congress, attack on them, labels them as a terrorist. Well, what about the pipe bomber that took place on January 5th that they still haven't caught, that they still haven't put no time to investigate in? They wasted taxpayers' money with these stupid J6 hearings. Guess what? They're going to do it all over again. Yep. I'm going to be interested. What interests me, and I stated it yesterday in one of the podcasts I did, I have no faith in the Supreme Court. They failed us too many times. But the Supreme Court yesterday held hearings on the January 6th thing. So there is possibility, which I don't see it happening. It's just going to get swept under the rug for accountability for the politicians. But people in the House and the Senate can now be held accountable depending on how the Supreme Court rules on that decision, and they could be making arrest warrants. But here's the catch. There's a loophole there. If the House is in session, they can't arrest them.
Nope.
They are protected. They have amnesty and immunity while the House is in session. So they cannot actually be arrested inside the House. Then it goes to who would arrest them. Well, we've already seen the debacle of yesterday with Ashley Babbitt's mom being arrested on the anniversary of her daughter's death. So you can't trust the Capitol Police to do their job. In fact, we got video of Capitol Police letting them into the Capitol. So,
well, it's
it goes down to the fact there is not going to be no justice against the real ringleaders and the culprits behind it. They're going to spin these committees out, waste taxpayers' money for no answers, no justice. It's the same old song and dance.
What a lot of people don't know, and this is very relevant to this situation, is that most people don't. I don't know if they don't know, or they don't realize that when it doesn't matter whether you're dealing with state Capitol Police or Capitol Police in DC, those law enforcement agencies, Capitol Police can, whether it's state or federal, there's no jurisdictional boundary for them. They can absolutely go wherever um, to wherever you happen to go. They're not bound by any jurisdiction.
Well, no,
Period.
because Washington is not a state; it's a district,
Right.
the District of Columbia. Therefore, they have jurisdiction in all 53
Right.
states.
Right. And state Capitol Police absolutely can go. They fall within the same jurisdictional boundaries. Their bounds do not end, ironically, at the state line. Um, and I found this out. Um, Ironically, I was an Iowa resident. I went down to Madison to meet with because I own property in both states. I had Iowa disabled plates, which pretty much means I am exempt from parking meters, one would think. And that if the handicap parking is not available, I'm still exempt from a parking meter. True or false?
True. Except for the District of Columbia.
Correct. Well, I was in Madison, Wisconsin. I parked in a metered parking spot. My plates were very visible, not obscured by anything. I parked, did not use the meter because under state law, both in Wisconsin and Iowa, it clearly stated that I was exempt. Well, apparently not. I left Madison after meeting with my rep in Madison, came home, had a very positive meeting. Nothing sideways happened in that meeting. I get at the state line. I didn't see the Capitol Police follow me. There was no emergency lights activated until after I had crossed into the state of Iowa. They waited until after I was almost 2 miles into the state of Iowa before emergency lights were activated. They tried to actually charge it as a felony, alluding that I had illegally parked, did not pay the meter. I did actually fight that case. I did actually win. However, the judge did take this time to say and educate that state police, state Capitol Police are not bound by state boundary lines. They are treated as federal enforcement officers, not state. And I asked the judge, I said, how is that possible that they are state officers, not, and the patch on their uniform was the state of Wisconsin, not a state park service or any of that you would see in DC. It was the state of Wisconsin badging. And in fact, the badge said Capital City, Madison, Wisconsin, not federal badging whatsoever. I found that very interesting. But the judge, he was very clear and he was very polite in giving me a copy of the actual state and federal ruling on this, which I thought was very, very interesting. And so people need to pay attention to this. So because now that we're in January, we're not all that far from the silly season of chaos, and I'm already hearing rumblings that it's very possible that this summer could get very, very stupid. After hearing about the some of the various gun control groups getting very stupid and releasing some of their stuff, some of their preliminary rulings about what's the safest states, what's the most dangerous states, and some of the recent 2A rulings that have come down in the last 24 hours, that things are really going to get really crazy, and but could also get very, very dangerous eh, on a lot of rulings. But we're also starting to see, and it's my belief that we very well might see for the very first time, as we've already seen one uh, felony or one convicted felon already get. Now his case was a white collar crime case. We've already seen one person have his rights restored after not having anything crazy and having had a spotless record after white collar, I think it was embezzlement, and it was very low. It was like under, I think it was under 10,000. And that was like 30 years ago kind of stuff. And he had gotten his record expunged. He thought that all of his stuff was cleared and that he could legitimately and legally possess firearms again. Well,
see, I want to comment on that because I actually know something about this. Here's how getting something expunged. So if you've got multiple charges, you can only get one expunged. You can't get your whole record expunged. So if you have a felony 1, felony 2, or 3, I mean, it's not hard to get a minor felony. I mean, possession charge will get you one of those. And you catch a DUI. Well, you got 2 felonies. You can only get one of those expunged. It takes a full pardon to clear your record.
he got a full state he got his full state record wiped. Full state record wiped. Everything was removed. His crime did not involve a firearm. He had everything removed from his record.
Well, see, here's the other catch to all that. If he was on probation or he did time, even though you get your permanent, you finish your probation or your probation gets terminated, or you get expunged or pardoned, you still got to go back to court.
Yep.
Because you got to go back to court to get your rights back. Because you still can't vote. A convicted felon can't vote in almost every state. Can't possess a gun. They got to actually literally go back to court, spend all that money to have their due rights returned to them. When it should be returned to them as soon as they do their time and finish their probation. I know people disagree on that, but that's the way it should be. Because they did their time.
Once the conditions of the court have been satisfied by the court and you receive your paperwork from the state releasing you from conditions of the courts and the judgment has been satisfied, typically what usually happens is it will be in writing that as long as conditions, as long as there's no except in cases where if a person has committed crimes against women and or children, where there's a registry clause on their court papers. If there, as long as there's none of that included, then their discharge papers usually state it very clearly that their rights have been restored, except their rights to possess. Usually that usually does require going back before the judge and whatnot. But there's so many people that don't get that. They just think that, oh well, I've done my time. I've already received my discharge papers and all that happy stuff, and it's all fine, good, and wonderful. But the problem is that in most cases it doesn't happen, and people are getting strung up, and people have absolutely been charged for voting after they have been completely free of the system. They've absolutely been hung out for even trying to vote. And now, you've brought up case situations like the mask. Um, there's actually two cases coming up that I believe are actually destined for uh the federal court system.
Well, yeah, because that falls under the Patriot Act. I mean, that
There's
anybody that was ever, including a misdemeanor, guys, that's what you need to understand about the Patriot Act. If you got locked, you did time in the county jail or got sentenced, regardless if you didn't do no time, by the Patriot Act, anybody that was incarcerated, whether it be county, prison, federal, or charged with time served, you are still can be potentially put on the domestic terrorist watch list. But with those regulations, they're federal. Even wearing a mask during COVID violates the Patriot Act because you're not allowed to conceal your face in any way.
there
But
is two cases
oh,
getting
I knew it was going to happen. I called that.
there's two cases getting ready to there's one case out of Minnesota, and there's one case that has every indication that is looking like it's gonna happen, coming out of Illinois. Um, and the one out of Illinois has the greatest chance, by looking at all the paperwork, has the greatest uh, probability of seeing the Supreme Court, um, looking at all of the evidence, looking at the laws, looking at the charges, the previous charges that they were incarcerated for, and what they got hit with after the fact. Because it's very interesting that the officer that arrested them 25 years ago is the exact same officer that arrested them for concealing their identity during COVID in a state mandated mask wearing. It is the exact same officer. Now,
Well, see, it don't matter about the state because it's not a state issue. It was a federal mandate.
right, but
Therefore, regardless, you're violating a federal law. That's what I tried to inform people on that. Most people I know that had their run-ins with the laws. Everybody, not everybody's perfect. And they knew, most of them knew it. They're like, yeah, I can't wear it because I was incarcerated after 9/11. It clearly violates the Patriot Act, which and what my thing was, they don't have to detain you right there. Every store, every place has the cameras. It just takes somebody like me, a YouTube channel, talking about things they don't want me to talk about. So all they got to go do is digging, which good luck. The only place I was forced to wear a mask was to go to a doctor's office.
and it was incidentally, guess where the person was arrested?
Probably at the hospital.
Coming out of a hospital.
Yep. So
And guess where the person was arrested? 25 years ago for peddling a dime bag. The exact same location.
I mean, like I said, people don't get it. They don't understand. There's so many laws. It's so hard to keep up with the laws. But you have to, because you can't win a court case on ignorance. If you tell the judge, I did not know, the judge is more than likely going to tell you, well, ignorance is bliss. It is your due diligence to know the law. It is your job to know the laws.
And
There's no excuse for not knowing the law. There is none in a courtroom.
I actually got lost a speeding ticket case, even though I had, and I actually still have the same GPS system on my vehicle. It's satellite telemetry, and satellite telemetry is pretty hard. That case is pretty hard to beat. A satellite telemetry readout versus the radar in a vehicle, in a police vehicle. It's pretty hard to argue satellite telemetry, is it not?
Yeah.
No, I actually lost the case. I didn't have to pay the actual speeding fine or anything like that. All I got was the written warning. But I actually did lose a case. Based on that, the judge was like, just because your satellite telemetry, though accurate, the speed zone had changed, and because I had not updated my GPS, even though it had prompted me 2 weeks prior to update my system, I had failed to do so. Therefore, the court did find me guilty of the ignorance. The sign had not yet been in the ground yet because of the freezing, but it had actually changed. And I found that very, very weird that I still got found guilty, and technically it was a gross speed, because it was the speed zone had went from 55 to 40, and I was doing 55, and when the officer caught me, technically that, by the definition of the state, that's reckless driving. Anything over 10, that's
Yep.
reckless.
Which you do not want on your record.
No, you don't. The judge did admonish me, saying, ignorance of the law, it is punishable. Now that's weird. No data. Okay, now it's fine. But it's just weird that it would go in that way. I mean, the judge could have absolutely threw the hammer at me, but he chose to use it as a teaching, saying that satellite telemetry, though admissible in court, it's still not, as quote unquote, the way that it was explained, is not accurate. That somehow the radar in the squad cars are more accurate. And I was like, no, actually, it's not. Because there's a 3 to 5 mile variance with every radar system. Irregardless, it varies from car to car. That's why it's very difficult to get nailed for that kind of speed. But when you think about it, you're cruising along at 55, and all of a sudden, boom, you're in a 40-mile-an-hour speed zone. That's gross negligence. And I was like, hey, I'm sorry, the sign isn't posted yet, so what am I supposed to do? The only reason why I had not updated my system was because my Garmin, it only has a certain amount of memory, and I could not find an 8 gig card because that's all that my system is capable of holding, is up to an 8 gig. And the judge he at least was sympathetic. He was like, how old is your system? And I'm like, 10 years old. And he's like, and it still actually works? I said, yeah.
Yeah,
It
the
actually,
Garmin.
I said, it's actually more accurate than my cell phone. And the judge was like, well, in that case, ma'am, I'm going to issue you a stern written warning rather than a punitive fine without court cost. And I was like, oh, damn. And this was a bench trial. This wasn't a trial by jury, although I considered that. I, I, I chose to fight it, because there was no sign.
Yeah,
And
actually, you bring up something I do want to discuss a bit, because there's been some talk about some other things why people have been copying out and stuff. There's a reason what behind that, and you actually brought it up because when you go to court and you try to fight a case, if you lose, if you go to a jury or you don't use a jury and just go to the judge and you lose that case, you get the maximum sentence. That's why so many people cop out to a lesser charge or a lower sentence, because they don't want to take that risk of losing their case. Because if you lose, you're doing the full amount of time.
Well, there's more to that now too. If under the new AG, if there is there's actually an enhancer to that now too, that people need to understand and know. So I'm kind of glad you went there.
Well, I mean, so like I said, our legal system is so broken, it's not even funny. Fair warning, you're reaching the 40. You're in the 40-minute mark.
Yeah, 42. At the 1 hour mark, I will have to reset the stream. Just so that everybody knows. But and I don't think in fact I will probably end it at the 1 hour mark because I have to actually go to work this afternoon. That if there is a firearm involved in a case, you absolutely have to pay the state legal costs, whatever the going rate for the attorney, the state attorney. If they use like the state prosecutor, you are going to have to pay the state's prosecutor, which could be the AG. You have to pay that, plus you also have to pay the court officer's time, plus you also have to pay the judge's time for your case as well. So now, instead of it being just a matter of the court costs, now you also have to pay those attorney costs, which could end up being, instead of court costs of $500 to $1,000, now you're talking in upwards of $50,000 to $100,000 in a court case. So go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, our legal system is very broken, and it's basically not. Our legal system has become nothing more than a Ponzi scheme and a place for politics anymore. Because all you gotta do is look up your jurisdiction, see how the judges vote, and if it's aligned to politics and your case has something similar to do with that, I would probably recommend taking a plea deal, because you're going to get screwed.
Well, you're going to get screwed either way, but you posted a video or a tweet yesterday
Yeah, I was hoping we'd get to that because I really want to rant on that one.
Oh, we're definitely going there. About and I'm going to clear up the mystery real fast. On an accident scene, as a retired first responder and medic, on any accident scene, the fire department absolutely, and it's universal in every state in the country. If fire department is on scene, they absolutely have absolute authority, even over highway patrol. So
Apparently not in California.
yeah, when I see,
Well, come to find out, did you watch that whole video?
yeah, I did.
At the very end, it kind of gets cut off, but it happened in Missouri. It's just not California where this is happening. It's happening in Missouri,
Yep,
and
it's
I think
happening in Minnesota and New Jersey as well.
Actually, I'm going to try to find a link to this so I can post it. There it is.
Yeah, feel free to post that in the chat. This is becoming a theme. But what people don't understand is those rigs have got to be positioned on those scenes to protect the lives of those EMS and fire and first responders that have to be positioned in a way because of all the rubbernecking that goes on them highways and freeways. So, my message is somebody who worked those scenes for many years and have almost been struck, not just more than once, but multiple times because of rubbernecking, that if you come upon a scene, first of all, slow the fuck down. Bottom line, slow down. And if you don't think you can get through that scene safely by cutting your speed by 3/4, then stop, pull off to the right and just stop. Because all you're going to do is create a problem for those who are trying to work that scene. Stay in your car. My God, it's common sense. Go as far over, if you have to drive through the scene, go as far over to the left as possible. If the accident is on the right, on the left side, pull as far over to the right as possible. If that means driving on the shoulder, drive on the damn shoulder. My God, it's common sense, people. It's not. It's not rocket science, and the fact that our first responders and our firemen, people that have taken an oath to protect and defend and save lives, are being arrested and detained, and that fireman is the litany of his charges is absolutely deplorable. Disobeying a direct order, public endangerment, blocking the lane of traffic, disrespect and disobeying a public official. What was the other one? Public endangerment was the other one. I mean, it is pretty extreme. What the heck's going on there?
I don't know. I might have screwed something up.
It's all good. Yeah, that it's just seeing YouTube. What do you expect?
No, it's on my end. I'm gonna drop out, come back in.
Okay. It's these things happen because of somebody's narrow-minded Neolithic incompetence, and until people stand up and actually speak up for our EMS first responders and fire until they actually do stand up and speak up, this is going to continue to be a problem. And it's definitely going to be a problem. And if you see somebody being detained, stand up and speak up for them. And sometimes you got to be loud. Sometimes you absolutely got to get loud and be willing to take a little extra heat for your fire and EMS and first responders, so that it protects them. Does that mean break the law? No, it doesn't mean that you got to be belligerent, but you absolutely can speak up and be vocal about it. And by all means, record it. Record it.
Oh, I mean, yeah, this was just straight ridiculous. I mean, even the fire. I mean, arresting a firefighter while he's on scene, performing a rescue, is honestly, that cop should be fired. A full investigation should be done. Whatever commanding officer has issued that order for them to do should be fired and removed,
Barred
permanently. But this, I mean, don't get me wrong. This goes all the way up. Like I said, this goes all the way up to the top, because this came from the state level. The state put this law in effect. There's, like Bree pointed out, there's a reason a firefighter parks their vehicles the way they do. And I tell you what's going to end up happening if they keep, and if any cops that are listening, if you do this, I hope to God that the people that's being rescued turn around and sue your asses off. Because it's an open, closed, slam shut win for them. Because you just endangered their lives, which automatically means you violated the very oath you took. You jeopardized the lives of the person being rescued. You put the risk at risk, the first responders. There is no place in this world where this should ever be tolerated. The fact that we're just now hearing about this amazes me. Well, no, it don't amaze me, because all the shadow banning and suppression has been going on all these platforms. And like I said, we had the discussion about Sinclair. But this is local news. It goes back to, we still find this stuff on our local news. This stuff happening. Some local news do reports and stuff.
That, I actually did look up that TV station, and that is a Sinclair Broadcasting owned TV station. And
yeah, that I mean, I caught this right before we went to do the podcast that was going to be political, which was probably a good thing when I caught it, because that thing, when I seen this, that had me heated. I mean, to put a firefighter in cuffs while he's performing a rescue, there is nowhere on God's earth, on the face of God's earth, where this should ever be tolerated. They arrested him for doing his job. And we know what the shitty part is? Most of these firefighters don't even get paid. They're volunteer.
In that jurisdiction, he actually is a paid fireman. But this 3 of the 5 charges that he's facing are actually felony charges. 3 of the 5.
This is the stuff that our Congress should be screaming and making sure it stops. I'm tired of these democratic states creating laws that endanger the citizens, that endanger our first responders. that, you know, I get it. Cop doing his job. Well, the cop, if he was doing his job, would honor his oath that he's sworn, and he would have parked his car behind the fire department with his lights on, like he's supposed to, and direct traffic.
And that's what they're only, unless further advanced life-saving measures are asked of him at an accident scene. That is their job, is to direct traffic.
You know, that video made me so damn mad. And it's just no, it's just uncalled for. And to find out it, you know, when I first heard the county it was in, oh, I'm like, okay, that's California. It makes sense. You know, because, you know, people in California, they don't have rights anymore. Unless you're an illegal immigrant, you have no rights in California.
Correct. Now we are at the 55-minute mark, and I do have a couple other things that I have to deal with here. Just so you know.
Oh, I plan on talking about this little subject on my channel today. Today's the last day I'll be able to do streams till next week.
It's, you know, this is a topic that, you know, it's, you know,
This is a topic that people like Tim Pool should be talk bigger channels instead of covering the nonsense that they cover.
well, Hunter just got it figured out, and he called them. So I guess we're okay for a while. I just am gonna have to get ready to reset here in a bit. But I am gonna have to lay down here in a little while because I have a show tonight. Because I still do security type stuff. Even though I'm inactive from my government job, I still have other things that, okay, that's weird. I just got that's the recording for the other, for the stream. That's weird. Okay. Should have told me about that, Drew. Because I'm actually utilizing the record feature from the mines. Should have reminded me about that. But you know, there's so much that, and we're always over on yours, and it's very rare that you're over here on mine. So we'll be good to go for, I would say, probably another, I can probably go maybe another 30 minutes. I think my ribs will hold up. I have severely damaged ribs. And then I'm absolutely gonna have to go lay down. Unfortunately. But you know, at we should never have to talk about these things.
No, especially this.
And
Yeah, I think when you switch over for the next hour mark, I'm gonna switch over. Now I can't. Damn it. Because I actually want to. No, that bad idea. I think about it because I know this can get a video taken down for
Right.
sharing a new so-called news agency's podcast.
right. Yeah, we don't need to be sharing their or re-airing their stuff, and we're right at 59 something. So I'm going to get ready to.
It usually goes right like I've been hearing a little bit. It's not totally accurate.
Yeah, I was pretty quick about grabbing the encoder. So
Oh yeah, you got to be. So are you using from the website,
yeah,
Jitsy's website, or the mines?
I'm going right from the website.
Okay.
All right, copy. All right.
And honestly, the recorder aspect of this is actually good quality. Better quality than YouTube on the recording side. It's actually better quality than.
Live streaming is on.
And we're back, folks. Sorry about that. It's trying to multitask here. It's people need to. There's no reason why we should ever need to. Good Lord.
Oh. I'm going to save this for a later date.
What?
Okay. I'm going to retweet it so I can find it again. Well, now, see, this is part pissing me off. For those of us who got the newer, updated version that can use spaces, which can only be done from our phones, we can also now bookmark our tweets. But we can't do it on the PC. Basically, if you got the updated version of Twitter on your phone, when you go to retweet, there's an option now that allows you to bookmark. I mean, I wish it was set up for the PC. I wish spaces were set up for the PC. I'd probably be more comfortable doing spaces on PC.
Yeah, it would be really nice to be able to do it from the PC, but
And honestly, my only really complaint about Jitsi right now is the ability not to be able to stream to other platforms. I'm stuck still streaming to YouTube.
well, for me, that's where my base is. It is from the to YouTube, and um I've never moved
Oh,
from,
nearby.
and for me, I can't, um I guess, um it's for me, um it's I just can't, until YouTube tells me, um get out of here, we're done with you. um it is what it is. Um and to that end, I'm I'm really in one of those modes. I spent last night thinking about the firemen and thinking about all of those situations that I've been in with the various situations that things could have went so much worse. And you know by and large, you know there's good officers, there's bad officers, and then there are officers that should never have taken the oath to begin with. and,
Well, yeah.
and it's I because I've been tarred with that brush in my line of work. I've been tarred and hit with that brush myself, so I know all too well what that feels like. And so to say that all officers are bad is unfair.
No, there's bad apples in every group, but my problem is and that's with every organization. If you do not weed out your bad apples, then then you're just as guilty because we should be policing our own. We know something's wrong. We know what they're doing is wrong. We need to police our own and take care of it. And that's the problem. They don't. It's a brotherhood. They protect their own. This is like talking about Congress with there's only 7 states that can recall their senators and congressmen and women. Everybody else, every other state has to go file ethics violations, and the ethics violations are heard by fellow congressmen and women, their fellow peers. That's why we never get these corrupt individuals out of Congress, because they're not going to remove their own. They're going to protect their own. We need to break that line of thinking, because we all know that cop arresting that fireman while he's on the scene and performing a rescue is wrong.
Well,
And the firefighter, I mean, he handled it perfectly. But he should have never. I mean, if he, that's where the citizens need to stand up.
See, here's something that little insight to that situation. Every state has this little board. It's called the Police and Fire Commission. Every single jurisdiction has that commission, and that commission is staffed in equal parts. So this should never have been a become a pissing match to begin with. And so if these problems have begun as they have, then we need to take a look at, okay, who's sitting at the top of that police and fire commission? If that person has gotten a big head, well, then he got to go. He got to go. And there needs to be a serious investigation into not just his underwear drawer, but into his financials and everything about him, his wife, his kids, even his damn dog. I'm sorry, love you, brothers, love you, sisters, but hey, if you're dirty, and you need to stand convicted as charged. And, that's just how it is. But unfortunately, it's very rare that charges ever make it into the so-called ivory towers of the police and fire commission. It's very rare. But when it happens, usually it's a clean house situation.
Holy shit.
What?
I want to read this before I say anything.
It boils my blood when I see people get taken down for doing life-saving situations. About a year ago, I have a wide range of certifications and training, very vast. In wilderness TACMED, certified, retired medic, paramedic 3. And my wilderness TACMED, that's a valid cert. And I was actually chastised for showing up on a scene prior to EMS showing up on a scene 10 minutes later. I was actually chastised by not one, but two different law enforcement agencies for showing up on a scene where an elderly lady suffered a significant concussion. A significant concussion with a gaping head wound. This was a woman in the, I'm going to just give a age range between 75 and 78. Advanced in age and insulin dependent diabetic. So, and that was the information that was put across the zone. And it was also put across the zone that she was starting to go into shock, which is very common with a head injury. I drove 7 miles to respond to the scene. The nearest EMS unit was 3 miles. I drove 7 miles, still managed to beat EMS. And the irony is that the EMS for that jurisdiction was only less than 3/4 of a mile away, but yet they failed to be able to get a crew. I was able to drive 7 miles, leaving one jurisdiction and in the middle of a city, clear across a bridge, still make it on scene and get there prior to even a county officer getting on scene. How is that even possible? And yet I still get reprimanded for giving truly life-saving, life-changing care to this woman. I didn't even get a thank you for having the exact required material out of my vehicle and using it on this woman. How is this even feasibly tolerated in this day and age?
I mean, that depends on state laws. I mean,
Iowa, this actually is Iowa. Iowa has what is known as the Good Samaritan law.
yeah, that's, yep. Ohio does too, which means if you come on a crash site and you decide to help, you do so at your own risk of being charged with a crime.
I am certain that my
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're certified or not.
But here's the double-edged sword. If you do nothing, the charges are actually worse.
Actually, no.
In Iowa, they are.
Nope. Here's how that works. Because you're not allowed to leave the scene of an accident. If you see an accident, you're supposed to pull over and stay there. That's how you get out of the rest of it.
In Iowa, if you show up on a scene prior to EMS or law enforcement getting on scene, you're required to stay there until the EMS is there and then give them all of the detailed information of what care you gave in detail, and then give a detailed statement to the law enforcement of said jurisdiction. Nothing more, nothing less, just as any other first responder would do so. Otherwise, it's the same as fleeing the scene of an accident.
Well, it's, like I said, every state's different. State of Ohio, you're the best thing to do. I mean, and I hate saying it because it's not in me, but even if you've got training, and I've seen cases where, off-duty paramedic or an off-duty firefighter, first responder firefighter, who's allowed to, because they weren't called on, their department wasn't called in, or it's not their department, they live in some other county, they can be charged. They've been charged.
Yeah.
So it's like I said, when it comes to the Good Samaritan laws and stuff like this, you got to know your state laws, the state you live in, because every state treats it different. Some states you're protected, but it's gotten to the point where a lot of states, there is no protection for you if you decide to help. And that's why I don't even know why they call it a Good Samaritan law anymore, because it's not being a Good Samaritan when your hands are tied through fear of.
But here's the other rub, because I remember my primary job it is connected to Uncle Sam, so now I'm now bound under federal,
Yep.
which means I'm required to now uphold and defend and be at times the hands and feet and uphold that oath that I took at either end of that spectrum, because I did take an oath as a medic as well.
Yeah,
So-
but you're also, see, it goes back to the old adage that our
Whoa.
founding fathers put in motion to keep state and federal separate. Federal only has jurisdiction when invited in. Federal can't even trump a sheriff.
Yeah, they made that a bend. The sheriff was very very clear. I mean, he wasn't he didn't get nasty. I mean, like really hyper nasty, but he made it very clear that the term he used, sheepdog medic. That's what he called me. He said, sheepdog medics in Iowa have no place. That's what he referred to me as. Even though my kit that I had, which is far better now than what I had at the time, even though the kit I had was far more advanced than what the cop had, he made it abundantly clear that unless I come upon something like a rollover accident or something of that nature, that it's not my responsibility, until I had to remind him that what is the cost and the value of a human life, and what is that he took an oath to the Constitution of the United States. And it was at that point that he was like, well, if you choose to follow that, you could be charged. And I said, sir, I said, I must remind you that my TACMED cert actually was issued in the state of Iowa. And he was like, oh. And it was at that point that our conversation did go in a very different direction, but he it's very difficult. And I can see why there is such a shortage of police, fire, and EMS. And why the recruiting for it is so low, We shouldn't be in this position. It's my hat's off, and I take my hat off, but my hair looks like I got struck by lightning today. Um, it's very bad. Oh, oh. Um, well, I'm not gonna.
Oh, you must have found one of my retweets.
No, something that Mr. Guns and Gear just
Oh,
posted on YouTube. I haven't had a chance to actually watch the video that Jared posted, but from Guns and Gadgets. But that's something that I will get into maybe next weekend, because I am going to start covering some of that stuff too again. But why? And this all does come back to treason and these officers and elected officials committing treasonous acts. And if they're committing treasonous acts, they need to absolutely be removed. How does that happen? What does that look like? It starts and it begins just as this country began 250 years ago, 255 years ago. Our founding fathers were very clear. They had a dream. They had a vision. They didn't just have a vision for them. They had a vision for us. But that vision didn't include things to get as big and as run amok as it has. Or as stringent as it has. And it's very, very interesting when we sit back and we take a look at where this nation started in its humble beginnings to where we're at today. And how I don't, I live in a pretty conservative neighborhood. And some of the conversations that we have here, I can actually open my door and walk down 2-3 houses and have some of the same similar conversations. So I feel blessed. But in a lot of neighborhoods, it's not that way. And that's not the dream that this nation was founded upon. That dream of being able to say what's on your mind, what's on your heart, what's pressing and pertinent to your sheriff even is an illusion today. 15 years ago, I was pretty much able to walk into my local sheriff's department if I had a concern about the way that my county was being run. I could sit down and have an open discussion and dialogue with my sheriff. Today, it's not even a dialogue. It's a debate. Everything has become a debate. Is it that way in every jurisdiction? I don't believe so. But why does everything have to always come down to a debate? Where everything, people that have followed Drew and I for any length of time, I don't think we disagree on a lot of things. We've had a couple
we do disagree.
we have debates. We have discussion rather than debate. And at the end of every live stream, generally it's I have my catchphrase that I always end mine with. You have yours, and we always end on usually a pretty good note. Yeah, last night I had to leave exponentially fast, but sometimes those things happen. At the end of the day, we all have a dream. Those dreams, I think some of your followers have come over here. I think some of my followers have actually come over to you. I haven't looked at the names and the lists and compared the two because, quite frankly, I don't have the time.
You can't even access the list now.
I can still access mine.
I was on there today. I can't.
I could still access who's following. What the? Oh, cat. It's there's been so much change on it. I mean, my list has stayed pretty consistent for the last couple of years, and I've put more content up in the last week than I have in the last year. And I'm going to try to get back to doing something at least once a week if I can. I can't make any promises because I'm dealing with dislocated ribs and broken ribs. So it's just the mere fact that I've sat here this long in the studio is a mere miracle. And I'm not medicated today. So I'm not going to be able to sit in here much longer. But, folks, at the end of the day, we all need to have these healthy discussions. And if we see things that we don't like, ask questions. Don't ask. It's not always about the why. Start asking the how. If you don't know how to make a change, start asking how and why. If you don't know how to reach out to your local elected officials, go to their offices. Every county has a website. They're required to have an actual website of how to reach out to the department heads to be able to directly either email them or call them. And it's probably going to take a while for them to get back to you. But they absolutely have to reach back to you at some point. They absolutely have to. It may not be on exactly on your time schedule, but they absolutely have to reach back to you at some point. You may have to play tag for a minute, but at some point they have to reach back to you. Now, police chiefs typically are not an elected, that's an appointed position. So you may play tag with them for a minute But sheriff, that's a different story. That's an elected position. And eventually they will get back to you. Start asking questions. Show up at your local town meetings, your county board meetings. Ask questions, but don't get rowdy and violent. Ask polite, respectful questions. Ask the how, ask the why, ask the when, ask the where. Ask these questions. If you don't know where, simply use Google as your friend. If you don't have that, obviously, if you're viewing this, you have Google. Otherwise, go to your local city hall. Ask the questions there. They're required to give you those answers. They're required under law to tell you when city council meetings are, how to attend, how to ask those questions. They're required under law. How to attend, how to ask questions. Some jurisdictions require you to actually submit your questions in writing. Do this. Some jurisdictions actually allow you to show up to police and fire commission meetings. But those questions, you absolutely have to submit your questions in writing. Absolutely have to be submitted in writing. I encourage that. Learn how your areas operate. Go there. Ask the question. Ask, what happens if you see this, like a fireman being arrested? What is the chain of command in your area? You absolutely have a right to know these questions. Some departments don't want to answer this, but you absolutely have a right to know. Ask the difficult questions. Don't be afraid. Just because they have a badge on, don't be afraid to ask. There's no dumb question. Ask, except for the one that you don't ask. Step up, step out, grab the bull by the horns, ask the questions. If you don't know it, then ask. Folks, I don't have any more to say. Drew, go ahead, grab the floor.
I really don't have much more to say. I mean, it's like I said, there's just so much out there. I'm still trying to debate what I'm gonna do for the day. I do want to think about doing a podcast today. I think I'm gonna probably talk about information. I think it's long overdue I venture down that slippery slope.
Yeah, and I won't be able to join you this evening. I'm gonna go lay down for a couple hours because I have to work tonight. And then tomorrow's family day, so I won't be around at all tomorrow. So it's going to be an interesting day tomorrow. But folks, at any rate, y'all know where to find me. Free Spirit Prepping and News over on Twitter. Same over on the Mines. I'm not there much, but I do periodically get over there and check that page too. Also, I do have a Facebook page. No Limits Radio, I believe, is the. Let me just double check. Nope, that ain't it. No Limits Live with Free Spirit is my backup fan page. I will change that on the YouTube so that you can reach back to me there too. If you got questions, leave a comment and I will try to get back to you as quickly as possible. Know that I will be out pretty much the rest of the weekend. But until then, y'all take care. God bless. Remember to take care of yourself, your family, your friends, your neighbor, even that crotchety old neighbor down at the end of the block. Whether you like him or not, you never know when your life might depend on him. Till we meet again, y'all take care. God bless. I'm out of here, folks. Have a great one.